Google and Facebook, the duopoly. They rake in billions of dollars each year, and they do it almost entirely through online ads. As an example, for every dollar that Facebook makes, 98 cents of that comes from ads. These companies are better than any company in history at figuring out what you want and showing you an ad for that thing. These companies so completely dominate the US online ad market that they've created a duopoly, which is like a monopoly, except that there are two companies instead of one. So companies that rely on ad revenue, like news publishers, are struggling to compete against the two giants. And of course, digital ads aren't the only type of ad, but digital ads do represent more than half of all ad spending, and its share is likely to only increase over time. So let's say this birthday cake represents all of the digital ad revenue spent online in the US. In 2018, that comes out to about $110 billion. Now, of this cake, Google is by far the biggest player. They take 38% of the cake, while Facebook is a distant but growing second. They take 22%. That leaves us with 40% left for everyone else. But then Amazon comes in with an almost 7% market share, and that's rising. Microsoft takes 4%, Verizon takes 3%, followed by Twitter, Yelp, and Snapchat, each taking their 1%. After all that, you're left with less than a quarter of the cake for everyone else to split. When I say everyone, I mean everyone. That includes the national publications you've heard of, regional outlets you may never have heard of, and the websites you've likely never heard of. All of these companies are competing against each other and the major tech giants, and they're losing. But it's not just jobs that have been lost. The world is worse off without journalists who are uncovering the bad things that journalists uncover.
This is what the war in Vietnam is all about.
Let's just take local newspapers, which have been decimated in the last decade. According to one study, over the last 15 years, 1,300 communities in the US no longer have a local newspaper and are considered news deserts. A recent study looked at those areas that had just lost a newspaper, and they found that local newspapers hold their governments accountable, keeping municipal borrowing costs low and ultimately saving taxpayers money. And without these local newspapers keeping an eye on governments, the study showed that government spending shot up, with government wages increasing and deficits expanding. So wasteful spending and higher costs for taxpayers, all icing on the cake.